I just put up this video earlier, but I had a little bit of technical difficulty with the internet. Um, so anyway, I had to kind of, since I was cut off in the middle, when I got back on, I had to delete that video. So I'm starting all over again. So if anybody was out there watching, please bear with me. You may not hear it exact the same way I put it, but it's pretty much what I said prior. Um, will pretty much be the same thing I'm going to say just now. And what is class reductionism? It's a term I've heard lately, and as a lifelong leftist, sometimes I'll run across a terminology that I'm like, what does this mean? You learn every day. So, according to the Urban Dictionary, uh, class reductionism is the idea that class-based oppression should be the foremost concern among revolutionaries, with things like gender, race, sexual orientation, etc., taking a backseat until after the revolution. For the most part, the term is used as a pejorative by liberals against socialists and materialists rather than being advocated by anyone. And some critics will say of class reductionism, such as your typical Hillary Clinton supporter, they'll be like, well, Bernie Sanders' disappointment with Hillary Clinton's failure to secure the support of white working class voters in 2016 presidential election was a grotesque display of class reductionism, cultural insensitivity, racism, sexism, and homophobia. I don't buy into that, but unfortunately, there's a lot of people that would. They're your run-of-the-mill partisan Democrat voters, or the corporate establishment within the Democratic Party. The best way that I look at class reductionism from the year 2020 perspective, looking back historically, I would say basically it is a revitalization of the left that existed prior to the new left of the 1960s, where everything was based on class consciousness. And and this is not to say that if you advocate class reductionism, that you're just going to be absolutely indifferent toward racism, indifferent toward gender politics, and indifferent toward LGBTQ equality or other issues that are considered identity politics. In fact, I would discourage anybody on the left that would just minimize it to that level. Because part of my package as a leftist is that I am a civil libertarian. Um, and sometimes I refer to myself as a social liberal without the political correctness. That's what I mean when I say civil libertarian. Um, but the thing about it is, um, anybody who's an advocate of class reductionism, worth their fiber, would not just sit there and be like, "Well, I refuse to take a position on A, B, C, or D, and E because it could be divisive." It's just that you need to find a way. Now, we're not. I'm not saying, I'm saying that the left should sit there and collaborate with neo Nazis and people from the alt right. Absolutely not. That they can go to hell, as far as I'm concerned. But what I am saying is that the left needs to get off of this kick of getting very nitpicky because somebody might not take a position occasionally, take a position that you take exception with. Um, we have we have a lot of problems in this country with income inequality, and when it comes to issues like race and class, you solve the economic problems of this country, you're going to solve a lot of problems dealing with race. and that means bringing back our manufacturing base in the United States. That means making sure everybody has medical care for all, single payer Medicare for all. That means revitalizing, bringing back our trade unions, because I hear a lot of people give me a lot of shit about how bad unions are, how bad that the unions have been, and all of that. But you know what? Unions are the reason why America became middle class in many ways. You look at places like the Nordic countries, Norway, Sweden, Denmark, where 90% of the workforce belong to a labor union. It's no wonder they have the highest standard of living in the world. I stand by that, and the more unions we have, the better things will be. Um, and we need to unite on the base of class, and put some different petty differences, and maybe in some cases not so petty differences aside, and because we need to look at the bigger picture, and that means we need labor law reform, which means either getting rid of the right to work laws that's been around since the 1940s, or reforming our labor laws that right to work would not be able to undermine union organizing, because right to work was meant to undermine union organizing. And things like the Employee Free Choice Act that Obama promised in 2008, and I'm not hearing Democrats talk about this anymore. That was one effective way to compete against right to work laws. Um, and it's something that you can get even people who, even though they're wrong, that there's no malicious intent when they favor things like right to work. You can get them convinced on things like the Employee Free Choice Act, which would uh, which would allow to make it easier for unions to organize, with the card check petition process, make simpler union organizing. Of course, corporatists don't want that. Issues like Medicare for all, and where you can convince Americans how pro America it is that everybody has access to health care, free access to health care, good health care, that would not destroy your pocketbook, would not destroy your bank account. Kitchen table issues. It's not sexy, but these are things that can kind of have people kind of overlooking their position on things, and doing what is right. So would I consider myself a class reductionist? I guess, considering what motivates me, because I mean, it is chiefly economics. It is left wing populist economics, a pro working class, pro middle class agenda, an agenda that would allow those who are the have-nots and the absolute poor to walk into the middle class. In other words, to create that equal playing field that everybody claims that they're for, but if you're really for an equal playing field, old fashioned social democracy is the way to go about it. This is why all you Democrats that hated Bernie Sanders so much in the primaries, you're so damn foolish for what you did. You're so damn foolish. We needed Bernie Sanders in 2016. We needed Bernie Sanders in 2020. Well, class reductionism in relation to, and it's being talked about in left wing circles. I'm hearing people talking about the populist stuff, and making sometimes an occasional alliance with the populist right on issues where you there is overlap, and you can kind of see eye to eye, and while it's beneficial to your side and their side, without either side really giving ground for their positions. And it's just, I mean, I'm not particularly a fan of Pat Buchanan, and that's an understatement. But Ralph Nader and Pat Buchanan, and sometimes Dennis Kucinich and Ron Paul, and sometimes we'll come up with positions where both sides are correct on it without actually succumbing to the worst of the other side, or what somebody would perceive as the worst of the other side. That I'm not saying that somebody works with someone like a Pat Buchanan or Tucker Carlson to sit there and just sit there and embrace the shitty politics of Pat Buchanan and the shitty politics of Tucker Carlson. They both got mostly shitty politics, but when they're correct, they're correct. Um, I'm I'm just giving, and there are people that are criticizing a program called Rising with forgive me for not being able to pronounce his name. Um and Genti Shager and Genti and Crystal Ball. And I like the program because those two pretty much don't they don't they stand their ground but end up coming to some similar conclusions. They have some differences occasionally, but it's all good. Um, and I'm hearing people like Kyle Kalinske talk about class reductionism. I'm hearing, and Jimmy Dore does too. They don't, I haven't actually heard Jimmy Dore use the term, but he pretty much embodies it on his program. And I'm hearing people like the Amazing Atheist, and he and a YouTube commentator I've just got myself familiar with, Bosch, were having a discussion on class reductionism, and so this has been catching my interest lately. And basically, I kind of sum it up this way: that class reductionism is, and in its 21st century form, it could mean this: bringing back the old left, having it complemented with sensible, moderate aspects of the new left to create a new left. And this new left is will be the saving grace of this country once people get on board with it. So, am I inclined to get on board with class reductionism? Well, let me answer it this way: as a lifelong leftist who is anti-racist, and I'm saying this without grandstanding or virtue signaling, who is anti-racist and who favors LGBTQ equality, and pretty much stand, you know, for all the social liberal causes out there, but do it in a way that's intelligent and logical, and a way that would not turn the other side off. Would I be considered a class reductionist? Darn tootin' I would. I mean, that on the cultural issues, I still stand my ground. I take my left wing positions, and we need to do this because whether people like the term social democracy or not, social democracy is what's going to save America. It's what saved Europe, especially after World War II, from choosing between communism of the Soviet Union or bringing back fascism. Unfortunately, fascism is kind of making a comeback around the world, and that is a serious problem, and it needs to be addressed. And I think that economic populism will turn some people on the populist right, and even on the darker side of the populist right, you can win them over and convince them even to abandon their really horrible positions. I, for 1 second, do not urge the left to give ground on these cultural issues, but I think it is very incumbent upon us to look upon class reductionism as a way to take on what's wrong with this country, and that is the corporate elites that govern both the Democrats and Republicans. The corporate Democrats the dinos, the rhinos, the neocon establishment. Um, and and some people will be like, I can imagine some people will be like, oh God, there he goes talking about talk, and you know, um, populism is what got Donald Trump elected. Here's the difference: even when Donald Trump made sense on a couple of issues here and there, it was fake populism. And Kyle Kalinske said, and I'm paraphrasing him, the best way to defeat the fake populism of the right is to have and embrace and pursue a true populism of the left. And then henceforth, I say has to be class reductionism. I'm Bernie Bro. Please feel free to subscribe, like, share, and let's have a conversation. Let other people know about this channel because the algorithms are messed up on YouTube these days, and we need to do something about that. Take care.